All right, hello Guilders 2 Gamers, Mucklick here. We have got a new episode of I Tried, and today it is the Paragon, the new elite spec added to the Warrior in the Visions of Eternity expansion. This is during the elite spec beta, so if you see this in the far future, you may have a different version of Paragon than what I am showcasing now. So the Paragon can be a DPS, I assume, I admit, I was not focused on that today, a DPS that provides alacrity or a healer. I was focused on support healing build that provides alacrity to see how well it could do, and I was pleasantly surprised. It did quite well. So first I'm going to showcase it in action, then we'll turn on a damage field and I'll showcase how well it performed in that. So if you wish to use to the limit, that makes the opening a little easier, but if you don't want to use that, your opening is a little bit different, but that frees up you to bring We Shall Return, to have a additional area of effect heal and Condi Cleanse. So if you want to use that, for example, I'll just do the more difficult one for now. We just like start on the fight, do some boons. I'm going to do that banner just to get the regen started and get this refrain going and swap and then do a bash. At this point, we should have all the boons up and it's just a matter of keeping them up. And we're going to do this and then swap back again. And you can see all those lovely boons right now. And just swap, and we got occasional stability on the party. We've got occasional resistance on the party. We got prot, we got swiftness, we got regen, we got fury, we got 25 might, we got alacrity, of course. The quickness is coming from the console to simulate what it would be like if I was grouped with someone who was giving me quickness. So, boons, no freaking problem. And on top of that, we are frequently throwing out stability to our teammates. We have stability on demand with this banner. We have Aegis on demand with this banner. We have Aegis on demand with Staff 3. So there's numerous ways of giving stability and Aegis, which is just mwah, chef's kiss. We got a lot of good stuff here. So let's focus this on, you know what, I'm gonna go straight to extreme threatening. We're going to crank this all the way up. So we are going to, you know, I'm gonna let the adrenaline drain out just to give you a more realistic, you know, experience here. I'm going to start the fight with no adrenaline, without to the limit. I accidentally took a little bit of damage there. All right, so let's run in here now and run in and run in, and we're going to do this and get the refrain going and do some Warhorn skills. I'll actually use my self heal here just to get this thing started and do that and do that. And we're going to swap this and then swap to the other refrain, weapon swap, and then do the bash. And at this point, I think we are in the rhythm and I should not have any more scary moments going forward. And we're doing good right now. We are doing good. So as you can see, we are keeping the boons up. I am in an extreme damage field, which is the one that is absurd. It is the one that is more damage than fights usually do. We're frequently throwing stability on the party. Our healing is more than enough, and I'm not using my emergency buttons. I'm not using Staff 3. I used my self-heal one time. I haven't used it again since. I have not used the banners since the fight started. I haven't used the elite skill, which could be anything. So it's very, very effective. Now let's talk about how it works for those interested in seeing if this will be something you would want to play. So I've shown it's functional. How is it working? In this, I am running mostly Harrier's gear, the glassy gear, with a little bit of, what was this? Givers, I believe? Yeah, with a few pieces of Givers. These three are Givers, the rest is Harriers. We've got Rune of Water, we have got Relic of the Flock, Sigil of Concentration and Transference on the stick, Renewal and Concentration on the Mace and Warhorn. This is the build, and the main things for how this works is as you are doing weapon skills, you will build up motivation. I literally never had to think about this. This is rolling so well, I could just, like, if this UI wasn't here, it wouldn't affect me because it was always working very nicely. The motivation is spent when you use a chant. When you use a chant, it does something instantly, and then it proceeds to continue pulsing an effect. So the pulses come from the last chant you did. So if for some reason you hit F2, F3, the F3 was the last one. See, the F3 is the one that's pulsing, the F2 was interrupted, okay? So the F2 is Might, and it has Fury if you have Motivation. The F3 is Constant Pulsing Healing, and it's more if you have more Motivation. Barrier if you've got a lot of motivation. Or sorry, Barrier, it's Barrier instantly, and then it's Pulsing Motivation afterward. That's what it is. The F4, I literally never used today. It's Swiftness, which you've already got covered. It's another source of stability if you have enough motivation, which we already had covered. And then you've got, of course, your burst skills. You've got the burst skill for Staff, which does healing and some boons, and it's your main source of regeneration. And you've got the burst skill for the mace, which is bonk. So the way that we want to do this is, for those who have never played Warrior and maybe you're thinking about playing it, you have a trait here in Tactics where you periodically gain Soldier's Focus. It's just a buff called Soldier's Focus. When you hit with a burst skill, you will spend the focus, you lose the buff, to grant might to allies. However, although all of these are labeled burst skills, the only one that can hit is the F1. So that was something I learned the hard way, is the F1 is the only one of your things here that can trigger Soldier's Focus. Over here, you could take this to get more healing on shouts. I chose to take Martial Cadence, which is every time you spend a Soldier's Focus, it will remove conditions from your party and give them stability. There is another trait that works well with, where you're where your weapon swapping has a 5-second cooldown time, which means every 5 seconds you can weapon swap burst and trigger Soldier's Focus, which will trigger Martial Cadence. So every 5 seconds you could do stability for your group, might for your group, condition cleansing for your group, a big burst, and you just trigger a whole bunch of stuff in here every 5 seconds if you do weapon swap F1. So that is something I really enjoy doing. And then down here, you start the fight with some motivation. Okay, that's fine. You gain more motivation when you use weapon skill 4 and 5. Okay. Heal yourself to gain adrenaline for each point of motivation spent. Strike and condition damage dealt to you is reduced for the motivation you have. And this is your alacrity thing. So whenever you use a different refrain. So that means if you go from F3, let's say you use your F3 and then you want to use it again, it won't give alacrity the second time. You need to switch to something else and then you'll give alacrity because you switched to something else. Now, the F2 mostly gives Might and Fury. After some experimentation, I found I didn't need it to keep Might and Fury up. So what I was originally doing was I would use F2 for a while, then do F3 for a while, then F2 for a while, then F3 for a while. So basically Might and Fury for a bit, healing for a bit. Back and forth. After realizing I didn't need to let the F2 chant to keep might at maximum, what I started doing is just every time the F3 was available, I'd go F2, F3. And it would trigger alacrity because I swapped chants. And then I was just always pulsing tons of healing. Boons were still covered, thanks to, all the other ways we have to supply boons, like for Great Justice, among the Warhorn skills and other stuff. We had the boons covered, and I would just go F2, F3, and everything was fine. Then, again, I would weapon swap and use the F1 as often as possible, every 5 seconds if things were going ideally, which would help keep more might up. It would help keep stability and condition cleanse and stuff like that on the party. Every time we swap to Warhorn, we use Warhorn 4 and 5. That will do swiftness. That's your source of vigor on the party. One of your sources of swiftness on the party. It removes some conditions from your team. It gives barrier to them, and you can do that every time that you swap, like either every time or every other time you swap to the Warhorn, you can do that. And then because they are 4 and 5s, if you're in combat, they will also give the motivation, because inspiring implements. So that was really good as well. Other than that, in Mace, usually I would just, use 2 and then hit it again for the bonk. 3 is save for a CC moments. On the Staff, basically you hit the 2 every time it comes off of cooldown. However, the 3, 4, and 5, you could save for when you need it. 3 is charged to a location, do a massive heal, and give them all Aegis. It can be used to keep prot up, but I didn't, in my playing, I didn't have to use this to keep prot up, which I loved because that meant I could save it for any time things got a little hairy. I could immediately do this. Everyone gets a huge heal and their next hit that they take is blocked. That was great. 4 is a small CC and a pull. You can use that for break bars. 5 is block the next hit. And then if you hit it again, massive heal on the group around you. This was perfect. I used this on Bone Skinner today. When he would do the big jump, rather than dodge roll it, I would just block it and then heal the whole party that didn't do the jump at the right time. So Bullet Catcher, really fun skill. I love that. That was very enjoyable. For the heal skill, you could run to the limit just to start the fight with max adrenaline like this, or you could run We Shall Return to have another button that is group healing and condition cleanse. Either one works. For Great Justice, might be required to keep the might and the fury up. The rest of it is flexible. For your elite skill, you're going to either want the new one from Paragon that effectively makes your whole party invulnerable for 3 seconds for you, and then if you do a burst skill right after, it makes the party not killable, not invulnerable, but they can't be killed for 2 seconds. And if they get low health, they can't go below 1, and then when this expires, they get a chunk of barrier based on their missing health. So if you're good at predicting when the group is going to get just slapped by something really hard, or for certain boss fights, you could bring the Paragon Elite. If you are less than perfect and you think you might, there's not a good time on this fight to use this, and I don't know when someone's going to do something stupid, you could bring the banner, and then you could just revive them with the banner if they get hit by something and, that wasn't expected. The other 2 slots are flex. I liked having Banner of Tactics, which is another stability on demand when you need it, and then Banner of Defense is an Aegis on demand, as also a lot of barrier and regen. I would start the fights with Banner of Defense in the first couple of seconds because our main source of regen was the burst from the staff. And by starting with this banner, I could focus on getting the chance rolling and then start bursting with the weapons after I got enough adrenaline. And then after the very first use of Banner of Defense, I just saved it for when we needed Aegis or the big barrier, either one. And I think that's most of it. This was really good. As you saw, I was able to do it in the extreme damage field. My attempts at doing that on Evoker, I just died immediately. We are on mostly Harrier gear, which is pretty glassy. We still have almost twice the health of an Elementalist. We get a bit of damage mitigation with Unyielding Resolve, helping us stay alive. You're constantly pumping out healing with chance of recuperation if you're playing the way that I described earlier, with just F2 briefly and then F3 constantly. I never had to use F4. It just did a burst every time I weapon swap. So weapon swap F1, just sync those up, and that takes care of making the most of your soldier's focus and martial cadence and stuff like that. And you have a healthy amount of tools for when you need to stabilize the group and things aren't going well. You've got the 3 is a very powerful heal, and then Aegis. You've got Bullet Catcher, which you can just double tap for another very powerful heal, or block and then heal. You've got Banner Defense for a big barrier and, Aegis and regen. You've got Banner or Invulnerability. And then, of course, you're using your Warhorn skills basically off cooldown, and they do more barrier and condition cleanse and stuff like that. If you are on a different fight, you might find that you need more condition cleanse, depending on the encounter. In that case, you could swap out one of the banners for Shake It Off, and you would have another tool to get conditions off the group. This build has a healthy amount of condition cleanse, not the most of all the supports, but a good amount. I think that just doing the weapon swap burst, which triggers a condition cleanse on the whole party like every 5 to 10 seconds, is going to be enough for most situations, but you can get more if you need it. Anything else? This felt good. If I had to think of a con, among supports, its damage was very low. I was in Harrier's gear. I was not in Minstrels. I was not in Full Givers. So I, had not given up on power to take more toughness or anything like that. I didn't feel I needed to. And yet I was doing less than 2k damage on most of the fights we did. But the healing was fantastic. The boons were fantastic. The emergency heal buttons were plentiful. We had stability on demand. We had Aegis on demand. And it was very, very good. Having tried every support build that existed in the past, this is absolutely my favorite support that Warrior has ever had. There is support Berserker. There is support Bladesworn. This feels so much better. And I said back in Soto when everybody got a new set of weapons that the Warrior Staff, I called it the winner at the time. I said that the Warrior Staff is the best kit of all the new weapons that came out. The only problem is the Warrior. Because the Warrior, it was getting carried by the staff. The Warrior itself was just kind of there. But the Paragon goes really well with it. Do I foresee them nerfing this? I don't know. Maybe. Again, the healing output is absurd. I was in an extreme damage field, not making use of Line Breaker, not using my healing skill, not using the banners after the opener. I was not using Vigorous Shouts for more healing from shouts. And I was fine. I was completely fine in the extreme damage field. So the HPS combined with its occasional barrier of this build, it doesn't have constant barrier like a Scourge, but it has frequent barrier. The HPS combined with the frequent barrier made for something that was pretty absurd. Here's when we did Bone Skinner earlier, and right here, does this show, hold on, let me see if this will show Bone Skinner. Okay, so yeah, on Bone Skinner, I did a whopping 2400 DPS, 6700 healing per second, and 3,200 barrier per second. That was way higher barrier output than I expected from this, because it has a few tools to give barrier, but again, it's not constant like the way a Mechanist is or a Scourge is, but there's a lot. There's much more than I thought. But I think that about covers it. So what do you guys think? If you've got any other thoughts on it, put your questions, problems, thoughts, concern in the comment section down below, and I'll fight you there.